Welcome back again, students. So we're on page 3. We talked about the basics of production, and now we want to move on to short-run costs, which will determine how much you can make. Remember, these are numbers that will go on your production possibilities curve. But suppose you picked how many units you'd like to make. Let's see how much it's going to cost you. So firms, to make their decisions what to make, they have to make as much profit as they want. So they're going to go for the lowest costs. So here we see we're going to look at either average cost, which is the total that you spend divided by how many units you make. So if you make 1,000 units and they cost you $1 each, then that's $1,000 is your cost. To get your average, you take the $1,000 divided by 1,000 units and come back to the $1 a unit is your average cost. Your marginal cost is a little different. It's the cost of your next unit. So your cost is going to have a curve. It's going to start out very steep because in the beginning your costs are very high because you don't know what you're doing. You're very small, so wholesalers and suppliers are going to charge you very high prices because you're only buying a little bit. They have no reason to give you a discount. So in terms of marginal costs, when you start producing, your costs will be very high. Then when you get bigger and have more experience and are more efficient, you can have lower costs going forward. So your new costs will be lower. So you might start out spending $3 to make a pizza. And then when you get bigger, you might have more efficiency and you can make the pizza for $2. And you can threaten the supplier, I'm buying a lot of pizza dough from you, so you have to lower the price. And the supplier might lower the price 50 cents, so you make another 50 cents. So you go from paying $3 for a pizza to $2 for a pizza to $1.50. Your marginal costs start to go lower and lower and lower as you progress. It starts to curve downwards. So your marginal costs are going to change, whereas your average is just the total divided by how many units you make. It doesn't matter where you are on the curve. The marginal cost depends on where you are in your production curve. The cost of the new units. So just remember that. What decisions they make based on costs is how much price to charge. You have to charge more than your cost, right? Or you will lose money. Firms have to earn a margin over their costs. That's the percentage you earn on top of your costs. So firms have to look at costs to charge extra above them and make a profit. Let's look at average and marginal cost. Average cost is just the average total of your costs over your quantity. So for example, if 2 widgets cost $44, the average cost is $44 divided by the 2 of them that you bought. So they cost you $22 each. Do we see that? Very simple. An average is something you have learned in school. Marginal cost is new. It's the new cost for the next item. So looking at this schedule down here, we see that we start out when we make 1 unit, all the costs are the same because your average is $32.50 divided by 1 is $32.50. Your marginal is the cost of your new unit. You only have 1 unit, so it's also $32.50. But then they start to diverge. So in this case, you see that your average cost, your marginal cost goes from $32.50 to $11.50. So you see that your average is going to drop to the number right in the middle. Let's add these 2 numbers. It's 44 divided by 2. And you're going to end up with $22 as your new average cost. But again, your marginal cost is your new cost. Notice how if you have a lower new number, it's going to drag the average down. Does that make sense? Because your average is made up of all the numbers. When you only have $32.50 in the average is going to be $32.50. But when you add a lower number, it's going to make your average go down because now we're adding a big number with a small number. And the average number between them is going to be smaller. Likewise, if this $32.50 became $65, then it would make the average go up, because the average would be $32.50 and $65 would be the number averaging in between them, which would be around $45 your average. So remember that the new cost is always going to drag your average in that direction. If the new cost is lower, it's going to drag the average down. Now suppose your new cost after a few months goes down to $8. So is it going up or down? It's going down. So it should drag your average down. And we see that it does. Your average goes down further. Why? Because now you're taking these three numbers, a high number, a medium number, and the new number is a low number. So that's going to make your average smaller. It's going to be, if I add these up, $52 divided by 3 is $17. Now, at the end, we have diminishing marginal product, you may remember, and now all your overtime and your shortages of supplies are kicking in, because now you're past your efficient stage and you're becoming less and less efficient as your resources start to dry up, have less land or less supply, your workers are tired, your machines are tired, and you have to fix them more. Your workers demand overtime, they make less because they're tired. So now your cost to make each item is going to go up again to $38. So remember, what happens when your new cost changes? In this case, if it goes up, what's going to happen? It's going to drag your average cost up, because the average cost is just whatever you had before, plus now your new cost is going to change the direction. Your new cost starts to go up again, it's going to drag your average back up again. And if you add all these numbers together, all your new costs together, you would see you get 90 divided by 4, and now your average is higher again. Again, the new cost drags the average after it in that direction, because your average is just all of your costs, the old costs plus your new marginal costs. So your new marginal cost will always lead the average, because it's going into the average, either at a lower number or a higher number. So it's going to move the average down or up because it's going into the average. So now that we've been through all these numbers, you can do this breakout room where you can see what's happening with total product and marginal product. Your total product will always go up. So this is number of lumberjacks, but let's suppose this is your cost of lumberjacks, cost of lumberjack labor. Lumberjacks are people who chop the wood or run it through the machine to make panels. So in the beginning, your total cost, when you're making very few items, it's low. Then when you start to make a lot of items, it's going to start to climb. And finally, you get very efficient and it just becomes very flat. You just get to your very efficient cost, and every plank is going to be cheaper after that. Suppose it's pizzas. Maybe you start out, it costs you $3 a pizza pie, but you make very few, so your total is low. Then you start to make a lot of pizzas at $3, and your costs get very high. Then you get the price down to $2 or $1.50 because you're more efficient and you can bargain with suppliers. And then the cost remains at $1.50. After that, though, it may get a little higher with overtime, but your total cost will be $1.50, $1.50 until you start to run out of supplies, then it will go up a little bit. So this is how your total costs go, or your total production costs. For marginal costs, again, you start out kind of high, and then your cost can go up, but eventually you get efficient, like over here, your costs are going to go down, you get efficient, and your new costs go down. So try to compare these to this example that we saw here, and you'll see that your total cost goes up and up and up, but it starts to slow down when your marginal cost goes down, your average cost goes down, And then your total cost is going to slow down. Keep going up, but it's going to slow down the pace, flatten out. Ignore number 4. And then your marginal cost, however, will be very high, and then it'll start to go down when you become more efficient. So try to compare that example to these two curves, and we will pause again right there.